everyone, my name is Maddie and this is my Marvel comic breakdown. Welcome back to our ever-evolving comic breakdown series. If you're new here, hey, you've just discovered the best place to hang out. This is episode 11, and oh boy, I've got some serious comic-verse drama lined up. Before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. I don't want you to miss any of these amazing comics. And to my returning viewers, thank you. Your support means the world. Today, we're peeling back the pages on some incredible stories, discussing intriguing character arcs, and of course, spilling the tea on some plot twists that will make your head spin. So, let's not keep the adventure waiting. Get comfy, grab your favorite snack, and let's jump into this wild world of comics. The next 4 comics are from the Mystic Comics number 6. They were all released in July 1941. The next comic is titled Identity Unknown. The author is unknown, but it was illustrated by Mort Leave. This time we've got the story of Dr. Eisenberg, a German scientist who broke ranks and fled to the US amongst the Second World War. He starts giving these fiery lectures against the Nazis at Bronson University, and you guessed it, the Nazi spies aren't too thrilled about this. They make an attempt on Eisenberg's life in broad daylight, and though he's saved by the dark and mysterious hero, the Black Marvel, Eisenberg still gets assassinated in his sleep. And the worst part is the captured spies don't utter a single word to the police. Now, here's where things get a little more interesting. At Eisenberg's funeral, Black Marvel spots a fight and rushes in to help a guy named Volk, who's got his memory all scrambled. I can't remember who he is. But he's got a sixth sense or something, and suspects Volk of being another Nazi spy. So Black Marvel lets the press leak the location of this memory-lost Volk, essentially using him as bait. Predictably, a Nazi spy makes a move, but Black Marvel is ready and lets the spy experience gravity firsthand, out of a hospital window. Rushing back to Eisenberg's place, the hero pulls off a switcheroo, posing as the dead Doc. When amnesia-struck Volk turns up, there's a bit of a tussle, and eventually he knocks Volk out, and bam, his memory comes rushing back. It's confirmed. Volk was another Nazi spy, torn between his mission and this haze of amnesia. He wanted Eisenberg dead, even if Eisenberg was already, well, dead. The other spies wanted him silenced for good, hence the hit. This comic storyline reflects the fear and paranoia during the time of World War II, and the lengths to which secret agents would go to carry out their orders. The Black Marvel embodies the vigilance and suspicion necessary in a world where enemies could be anywhere, adding an intriguing layer of psychological warfare to the mix. The next comic is titled Dolls of Death. The author and artist are unknown. It's President Roosevelt's birthday, and people are flooding the White House with presents. We see the Terror among the crowd. A suspicious dude pushes his way to the front. There's a brief scuffle with the Terror, who's morphed into his super form, and then the guy just drops off his gift and books it. Opening the gift reveals a straight-up nightmare. It's a tiny doll of Senator Thompson. Well, not a doll. It's actually the senator himself, shrunk down and dead. So the Terror obviously decides to look into this bizarre murder. He tracks the package back to a company called the Lifelike Doll Company. At the factory, he recognizes the shady gift guy, goes full beast mode again, and brings him down. Entering the factory, he spots a Nazi spy turning Admiral Pierce into another pint-sized horror using some kind of shrinking potion. The Terror gets captured, and the spy shows him the shrunken down Admiral Pierce and reveals his plan to shrink the president and send him to Hitler. The Terror breaks out of the chair, and a fight ensues. The hero takes out the spy, turns him into a mini version using his own potion, and rescues Admiral Pierce, who is miraculously still alive. He finds the antidote, brings the Admiral back to his normal size, and gets rid of the rest of the potion, making sure it can never be used again. Back at the White House, the president commends the Terror for his service. This comic underlines the atmosphere of paranoia and fear that characterized the World War II era, drawing upon the real-world tension and espionage. Moreover, it uses the supernatural element of the shrinking potion as a metaphor for dehumanizing and destructive effects of war, emphasizing the need for vigilance and resilience in such times. The next comic is titled The Master of a Thousand Weapons. The author is unknown, but it was illustrated by Al Baer. So there's a night stalker, a strangler, lurking in the shadows and taking out victims one by one. The police are clueless, no leads, no nothing. In this desperate situation, they turn to the Challenger for help. The Challenger plays a game of cat and mouse, calling out the killer in a newspaper article, saying that he would survive if the strangler attacked him. Reading this, the strangler, who's not just a murderer, but a man who goes bonkers and turns homicidal under the moonlight, decides to take the bait. One night, our hero's out and about when the strangler attacks. The Challenger gets a terrifying feel of the killer's grip, but manages to break free, and in the scuffle snags one of the Strangler's gloves. Plot twist time, it's a police-issue glove. The Strangler's been impersonating a cop, tricking his victims into feeling safe before striking. To nab this imposter, the Challenger asks the police chief to summon all officers back to the station. One by one, they enter a dark room and put their hands around the Challenger's neck. Using his prior encounter and the fact that the killer is triggered by moonlight, the Challenger identifies the Strangler. A fight breaks out, they both end up on telephone wires outside the window. In an ironic twist, the Strangler gets tangled in the cables and strangles himself to death. This comic is a classic noir-style thriller, delving into themes of duality and identity. It also interestingly leverages the tactile experience, emphasizing the sense of touch to drive the plot. The Strangler, disguised as a policeman, highlights the fear of danger lurking within the very forces meant to protect us, adding an extra layer of tension and uncertainty to the narrative. The next comic is titled Dark Streets of London. It was written and illustrated by Bob Davis. This is a scene set in the middle of World War II. The Blazing Skull is patrolling London streets when he stumbles upon an assault on the Prime Minister's aides. He finds out that Nazi spies have got wind of a secret flight carrying none other than Winston Churchill right over Nazi territory. Despite the hero's best efforts, he can't stop the broadcast of this dangerous info. As Churchill and his pilot brave the skies, the Blazing Skull thwarts some Nazi spies and boards another plane to keep up with them. Over Germany, Churchill's plane is ambushed by enemy aircrafts, forcing it to either land or crash. Observing this, the Blazing Skull makes a gutsy move, leaping from his plane to help Churchill. Creating a dramatic diversion, the Blazing Skull crashes a departing Nazi plane into the airfield where Churchill is imprisoned. With fists flying and sheer determination, he overcomes the Nazi agents, frees Churchill, and swipes a Nazi plane. The duo make their daring escape from Nazi Germany and head back to the UK. This story presents a gripping narrative packed with high-stakes action and bravery. It exemplifies the heroism often attributed to comic characters like the Blazing Skull during World War II. The story is an adventure that incorporates real historical figures and events, adding a layer of authenticity that intensifies the suspense and danger. The use of historical context makes the comic narrative more compelling, providing a stark contrast between the heroic efforts of the Blazing Skull and the oppressive Nazi regime. The next 8 comics are from the Mystic Comics number 7. They were all released in September 1941. The next comic is titled The Machine of Death. It was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Al Avison. Per Wilhelm von Sinn, the inventor of the formidable weapon called the Machine of Death for the Nazi forces, steps onto the scene. This deadly invention is a remote-controlled drone plane loaded with explosives that attaches itself magnetically to enemy ships. After a successful demo of his terrifying creation, von Sinn receives praise from his superiors, but also gets a warning. Stay alert for the Nazis' most potent adversary within their borders, the Destroyer. Now, the Destroyer is on a patrol mission when he stumbles upon a hungry couple. After assuring them of help, he stands up to the local shopkeeper, denying them food due to insufficient stamps. Making sure the food reaches the needy couple, he leaves behind his symbolic card, reinforcing his reputation as a hero of the people. Moving ahead, the Destroyer resumes his civilian guise as Keen Marlowe and joins his girlfriend, Florence Von Ward. The pair encounter Sin, testing his Machine of Death again. Noticing them, Sin boasts about his impending destruction of another British ship. Keen intervenes, leading to the drone crashing into the water near the ship. The enraged Nazis arrest Keen and Florence, sending them to a concentration camp. Meanwhile, Sin gets summoned to see Hitler, who's going through a manic episode. Sin, pitying his leader, promises to use his weapon to sink many ships in Hitler's honor. But Hitler's ambition goes beyond that. He demands that Sin eliminate the Destroyer. As Keen is led out for execution by a firing squad, he escapes, transforming into the Destroyer. He returns to the camp, fights off the guards, and discovers Sin's plans to launch more drones. Believing this is the more urgent threat, the Destroyer goes to stop Sin. After a heated battle, Sin meets his end by falling off a cliff. The Nazi soldiers surrender, claiming forced obedience and their plans to flee the country to fight for freedom. Impersonating Sin, the Destroyer orders Florence's release over the radio. When Hitler learns of the thwarted plans, he's infuriated. Meanwhile, at their apartment, Florence suggests a break, but Keen refuses until the Nazi threat is completely eliminated. This storyline is a potent mix of heroism, suspense, and strategic battles against a common foe. It showcases the Destroyer's determination and perseverance against all odds, along with his empathetic character. It also highlights the complexities of wartime situations and the individual struggle to maintain justice, even when faced with overwhelming odds. The next comic is titled The League of Blood. It was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Mark Schirkowski. This plotline features the League of Blood, a group of cold-blooded criminals led by a man named Nadas. They're a band of killers for hire, and their latest contract is a whopping $5,000 hit on Sid Stern, a renowned football star. Breaking into Stern's residence, they brutally murder him in his sleep, their weapon of choice being a baseball bat. But little do they know they're being watched by a fresh face in the vigilante game, an enigmatic figure known as the Witness. The costumed hero springs into action, engaging in a bloody brawl with the thugs. He lets one live, though, who spills the beans about the hit being called by Nick the Gambler to ensure a win on a bet he'd placed on the game. Later, Nadas heads to collect his blood money from Nick, only to be shocked by a gruesome scene. Nick's been taken out by the Witness. Despite his surprise attack on Nadas, the Witness slips up and ends up being knocked out by Nadas's cane, allowing the villain to escape. Regrouping with his surviving gang members, Nadas plans their next move, a hit on a trucker named Rollings, who defied them by refusing to pay protection money. Ambushing Rollings and his crew, the League locks them up in the back of Rollings' own truck, planning to send it careening off a cliff. But once again, they are confronted by the persistent Witness. In an intense battle, the Witness overpowers them, freeing the imprisoned truckers, who then give chase to their fleeing captors. However, on their return, they find the Witness gone and notice his lifeless body at the bottom of the cliff, leaving them to question if the death was an accident or the Witness's handiwork. This narrative not only thrills with its action-packed encounters, but also introduces us to the morally ambiguous character of the Witness. His methods, while brutal, shine a light on his determination to rid the streets of crime. However, the question of Nodis's death adds a layer of mystery and poses a moral question around the Witness's actions, making us wonder if he crosses the line between hero and vigilante. The next comic is titled Lewis and Sykes. It was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Stan Drake. So we've got these two shady dudes, Lewis and Sykes. They're cashing in big time by playing both sides in the war, selling ammunitions to Axis and Allied forces. Well, turns out, even the devil himself isn't a fan, and he sends his emissary, the Black Widow, to settle the score. Black Widow, not to be underestimated, goes undercover, right in the lion's den. She disguises herself as a job seeker, landing an interview with Lewis at the munitions plant. And just when he's least expecting it, Black Widow lets her true self shine through. And I mean literally. Bye-bye, Lewis. Now on to Sykes. Poor guy walks into the room only to see Lewis's demise. He tries to make a run for it, but Black Widow isn't one to let her target escape. As he runs into his office, Sykes attempts to fight back. He splashes a corrosive chemical at her, but she's just too quick. Using her cape as a shield, she deflects it right back at him. And just like that, Sykes is history. This scene beautifully establishes the Black Widow as a lethal and unstoppable force. She's cunning, stealthy, and powerful. She isn't just a femme fatale. She's a supernatural power sent by the devil himself. What's really interesting here is the narrative's moral undertone. Lewis and Sykes, the war profiteers, are clearly painted as the bad guys, and Black Widow is just there to exact justice. It's a stark warning about the consequences of greed and the destructive nature of war. So not just an epic fight scene, but some food for thought too. The next comic is titled A Fight to the Death. It was written by George Klein and illustrated by Mike Sykes. This one is definitely a big yikes when it comes to what the main character symbolizes. I find it disturbing and insensitive, so viewers or readers be advised, please. The Ape, a renowned boxer, catches the attention of some unsavory mobsters. While they're watching his match and planning to recruit him for their illegal shenanigans, a man named Will Warling shares the spectators' seats, his anxiety mounting over the possibility of the Ape turning to crime. But that fear turns into a chilling reality when the mobsters approach the Ape post-match and rope him into playing a bank job. The Ape, playing the role of a decoy, distracts the people at the Sixth National Bank while these mobsters pull off their heist. But just as they're making their getaway, they betray the Ape, leaving him to take the fall. The Ape gets a gunshot wound to the head, but his resilient skull saves his life. Still, the incident leaves him mentally unstable, fueling his rage toward these mobsters. Enter the Challenger. Having witnessed the shady dealings earlier, he's on the case. He intervenes just in time to stop the Ape from delivering his revenge on the mobsters. But the Ape isn't done yet. After escaping the Challenger and attacking a shopkeeper for food, he finds himself in a street-side showdown with the hero. But the Ape's head injury proves to be his downfall when a well-aimed blow from the Challenger knocks him out cold. I'm going to try and analyze this without taking into account the underlying issues because I feel like it's not my place, but please feel free to add your own thoughts and concerns and I will 100% boost them. This plot serves up some intense drama, dealing with themes of betrayal, vengeance, and the struggle to maintain one's integrity in the face of temptation. It's an interesting exploration of the Ape's character, showing his fall from grace and subsequent redemption. It also highlights the Challenger's role as a vigilant hero, committed to protecting the innocent and bringing the guilty to justice. But perhaps most importantly, it serves as a warning about the destructive power of anger and the importance of not letting it consume you. The next comic is titled Looters. The author and artist are unknown. There's this bunch of sneaky thieves, headed by a guy called Potoro. They're hitting up small businesses, flying low under the radar of the law. But when news comes up of a shopkeeper shot down in a robbery, the Terror, aka Laszlo Pevley, feels compelled to step in. The hero spends days roaming the streets until Lady Luck smiles on him. He's just minding his own business in a men's clothing store, trying to pick out some nice shirts, when Potoro's goons choose to hit that exact spot. In true superhero style, Laszlo morphs into terror form and takes on the baddies. However, they overpower him with their numbers and drag him to Potoro for judgment. Potoro decides to haul him to a nearby park and off him. But just as they're about to execute the plan, Laszlo transforms again, bringing back the Terror. He takes Potoro and his minions head on and dishes out a good old-fashioned beatdown, leaving them knocked out for the cops to find. This storyline effectively showcases the relentless nature of the Terror, his willingness to investigate and intervene, putting his life on the line for justice. It reinforces his character as an underdog hero, one who might be overpowered initially, but always bounces back stronger. Potoro and his gang serve as a testament to the rampant lawlessness and dire need for vigilantes like the Terror. The plot is a pretty cool representation of a classic good versus evil scenario, with a satisfying outcome where the bad guys get what they deserve. The next comic is titled The Dweller in the Haunted Cave. The author and artist are unknown. Davy, a young adventure-loving orphan, decides to break free from his routine life. He heads into a nearby forest and stumbles upon a hidden cave. Inside, he hears a desperate call for help coming from behind a grand golden wall. Being the kind-hearted kid he is, Davy agrees to assist, tapping a black stone at the bottom of the wall 3 times. Much to his terror, Davy discovers he has unintentionally set free a ginormous demon, imprisoned for centuries. This creepy guy claims to be the embodiment of all evil, and he's out for revenge on humanity. However, he throws Davy a bone, giving him a magical cloak that will protect him from the demon's destructive powers. Then, leaving the bewildered boy in the cave, the demon sets out to enact his chilling plan to erase humankind. Overwhelmed by guilt, Davy decides to take matters into his own hands and stop the demon, come what may. He alerts the local law enforcement, but they're no match for the powerful demon. Yet, Davy is not deterred. He keeps throwing himself in the demon's path, using his enchanted cloak as protection. His persistent interruptions buy enough time for big guns to arrive. The demon, experiencing pain from their bullets, decides to retreat, though he swears to return for his vengeance. This plot is a powerful representation of bravery, responsibility, and the struggle between good and evil. The character of Davy, despite his age and circumstances, personifies the spirit of heroism and determination. This storyline highlights that courage is not dependent on age or size, but rather the will to do what's right. The demon serves as an embodiment of evil, emphasizing the potential consequences of uninformed decisions. Overall, it's a gripping narrative filled with suspense, action, and a message about personal responsibility and redemption. The next comic is titled The Grinner. It was written and illustrated by Al Gabriel. There's Dr. Weems, a respected biologist who's working to find a cure for pneumonia, but his experiment takes a freaky turn and transforms him into the wicked, maniacal character known as the Grinner. Embracing his new persona, Grinner amasses a squad of mobsters, and they set out on a crime rampage. This doesn't go unnoticed, though. It piques the interest of the superhero, the Black Marvel, who then makes it his mission to track down the Grinner's hideout and take on the mob. Just when you think things are heating up, the Grinner manages to slip away back to his lab and cleverly uses his potion to revert to his original Dr. Weems identity. He's trying to throw Black Marvel off his trail. Switching back to his sinister Grinner form, he plots to entice the Black Marvel into a trap-laden safe house. But the hero proves to be one step ahead, freeing himself and hot on Grinner's heels back to the lab. This time around, Black Marvel isn't fooled by Grinner's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde act. He catches Grinner mid-transformation, and it's game on. In a face-off, the Black Marvel delivers a blow that sends the Grinner tumbling back, hitting his head against the cold, hard lab wall. It's a fatal hit, and as Grinner meets his end, he morphs back into his true self, Dr. Weems, revealing his dual identity to the Black Marvel. This narrative delves into classic themes of good versus evil, but with a unique spin of transformation gone wrong. It exposes the dichotomy of a character who swings between the roles of a respected scientist and a nefarious villain, exploring the concept of dual identities. Additionally, it underscores the relentless pursuit of justice by the Black Marvel, and the intricate web of deceit and intrigue woven by the Grinner. The next comic is titled Museum Robberies. The author and artist are unknown. After getting wind of a string of puzzling museum heists, Mark Todd decides it's high time to do some sleuthing. In his superhero alter ego, the Blazing Skull, he sets up surveillance at the museum and uncovers the criminal, a hulking man who's been cunningly disguising himself as a statue to pull off these robberies. He takes off after the imposter, eventually cornering him and prying out his secret stash of stolen artifacts. Here's where things get wild. The thief, who goes by Big Joe, spills that he was actually on the payroll of the museum curator, a guy named Hawkins. The plan was to steal the priceless art pieces so they could be sold off later for some major dough. With this juicy piece of intel, the Blazing Skull sets out to hunt down the deceptive curator. He manages to apprehend Hawkins and hands him over to the authorities. The sheer terror of coming face to face with the superhero makes the museum owner spill the beans, confessing to all his wrongdoings. This narrative takes us through a classic detective-style storyline with an unexpected twist that adds depth and intrigue. The plot is clever in its portrayal of the seemingly ordinary museum curator as the mastermind behind the sophisticated art theft scheme. The irony is delicious here, a caretaker turned predator. The story keeps us on edge, blending the element of surprise with high-stakes action and mystery. It underscores the idea that not everything is as it seems, and sometimes the culprit may be hiding in plain sight. The next 7 comics are from the Mystic Comics number 8. They were all released in December 1941. The next comic is titled The Largest Diamond in the World. The author is unknown, but it was illustrated by George Klein and Howard James. We're in the heart of South America, where the Chisholm diamond mine has unearthed a mega sparkler. But here's the catch. Anyone who lays hands on this precious gem drops dead on the spot. The local spiritual leader, Buka, from the Mari tribe, claims it's the wrath of their earth core deity, Vulcan, striking down those who dare invade his territory. This spooks the native workforce to the point where they put down their tools and refuse to step foot in the mine, which puts the Chisholm mine owners in a pretty tight spot. Under the cover of darkness, a bunch of opportunistic thieves try to snatch the deadly diamond. One of them succumbs to this so-called curse, while the others find themselves face to face with the Black Marvel, who swoops in just in time. But some of the natives enter the scene, knock out the hero, and drag him to their leader, Buka. Next thing he knows, he's their main course for their next cannibal feast. But this hero's not one to be served up without a fight, so he breaks free and fights his way out, even taking down a trio of lions in the jungle. Racing to the mine office, the Black Marvel intercepts the owners just as they're about to sell their supposedly cursed mine to a guy named Ridley. He tells them that Ridley's behind the whole curse scenario to buy the mine on the cheap. Ridley tries to fight back, but the hero's having none of it. And just when you think things can't get any wilder, a figure claiming to be Vulcan shows up, only for the Black Marvel to unmask him as Buka. Ridley storms in, ready to end it all, but the hero takes both him and Buka down, revealing the cursed diamond to be nothing more than a painted rock laced with a deadly poison. This is a high-stakes adventure with a supernatural twist, or so it seems. It's a tale of deceit and greed, where the idea of a divine curse is exploited for personal gain. At the same time, it's a testament to the Black Marvel's bravery and quick thinking. This storyline is full of surprises, keeping us on our toes as we navigate the plot twists. Remember, not all that glitters is gold, or even a diamond in this case. The next comic is titled No One is Safe. The author is unknown, but it was illustrated by Howard James. The nefarious demon is still wreaking havoc across Midville, following his inadvertent release by the young Davy Drew. Despite the remorse and determination, Davy struggles to contain this monstrous terror he unwittingly let loose. In a twist of irony, the demon tries to annihilate the very boy who freed him, but Davy's magical cloak, gifted by the demon himself as a thank you present, comes to the rescue, rendering Davy untouchable. Pissed off and unable to lay a finger on Davy, the demon resorts to more old-school tactics, snagging the lad in a net. He then hauls Davy off to his creep-tastic lair with a plan right of a fairy tale witch's handbook, boiling the poor kid alive. But just as Davy's about to take a not-so-refreshing dip in the cauldron, a mysterious figure swoops in, giving even the demon a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. And we'll continue this in the next issue. We see a classic scenario of be careful what you wish for in Davy's story. His initial desire for adventure spiraled into a nightmare he couldn't control. It's interesting to observe the plot twist of the demon's gift turning against him, and this reinforces the notion that actions can come back to haunt you. The cliffhanger with the sudden appearance of a mysterious figure is a fabulous tactic to keep us eagerly waiting for the next issue. The next comic is titled Hitler Meets the Destroyer. It was written by Stan Lee, but the artist is unknown. When a senior German citizen gets apprehended and brutally assaulted by Nazi soldiers for daubing a V sign on a building, the freedom fighter known as the Destroyer leaps into action, fending off the soldiers and facilitating an escape. Seeking refuge, the Destroyer disguises himself as a hotel waiter by slipping into the kitchen of a nearby hotel. In his new guise, he overhears Nazi patrons reveling in their sadistic torment of the scientists at the concentration camp. Unable to bear their gloating, the Destroyer accidentally spills hot soup on them. As part of his new job, he delivers food to a hotel room, only to find it serving as an interrogation chamber for a captured British spy. Swiftly reverting to his superhero persona, the Destroyer liberates the spy, both of them disappearing into the darkness. The Destroyer returns to his waiter disguise, finding it an effective cover for his covert operations. When news of the spy's escape reaches Hitler, he's livid and assigns his most formidable manhunter and confidant, Von Maus, to track down the Destroyer. Suspecting that the Destroyer is embedded in the hotel's workforce, Von Maus dines there, where he picks up on the subtle imperfections of the Destroyer's German accent. Even though the Destroyer deflects Von Maus's probes, Von Maus maintains his suspicions, telling the Destroyer of his capture of the Destroyer and plans for his torture. Von Maus's ruse works perfectly, as the Destroyer fears an innocent man could be mistaken for him and undergo torture. Lured by Von Maus's bait, the Destroyer falls into a trap. However, the Destroyer manages to overpower Von Maus and decides to pay a special visit to Hitler Hitler. Using his disguise skills, he impersonates von Maus to secure an audience with the Fuhrer, humiliating him before revealing his true identity. As security personnel burst into the room, the destroyer attaches a note bearing a V mark to Hitler's back, battling his way through the Nazis to escape and vowing to continue his fight against the Nazi terror, much to Hitler's dismay. This narrative presents a classic example of wartime espionage and sabotage. It underlines the heroism of the destroyer, who risks his life to protect innocents and undermine the Nazi regime. His effective use of disguises and quick thinking plays a significant role in his escapades. The story ends with the heroic defiance of the destroyer, leaving readers on an optimistic note about his future endeavors. Okay, sorry, I'm not feeling very well. Like, I feel very faint, so I decided to sit down on my couch, so I'm sorry for the change of scenery, but, you know, something new. The next comic is titled The Gems of Doom. It was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Mike Syrkowski. So there's this crafty mob boss, goes by the name The Imp, and he's got big dreams of becoming the ultimate crime lord of the city. He sends his lackeys out to rob Kartafy's jewel store because nothing says crime lord like a little bling. But the boys decide to pull off this heist when the Witness is on patrol. The Witness throws down, taking out one of the goons while the other just barely escapes on a subway train. But the Witness isn't about to let this slide. He turns to the downed goon to squeeze out all the info that he can about their boss, the Imp. Meanwhile, the escaped goon hightails it back to the Imp's hideout, warning him about the Witness. The Imp, chill as a cucumber, assures him that he's got a plan to take out the Witness for good. Next day, we're at a local pawn shop run by a guy named Bowie Dodley. Officer O'Brien comes in, letting Dodley know about the heist on Kartafy's, and asking him to keep his eyes peeled for anyone looking to fence the stolen gems. Dodley, playing the good citizen, agrees. Now, here's where things get interesting. The Witness decides to pay Dodley a visit, armed with the info from the apprehended goon. He asks Dodley to help him track down the Imp. Dodley tells him the Imp's holed up in his basement, even showing him a hidden trapdoor. But surprise, the wild-mannered Dodley is actually the Imp in disguise, who was planning to ambush the Witness. But the hero isn't that easily fooled. He's ready for the attack, taking out the Imp and his henchmen. He leaves the bad guys tied up, along with the stolen loot, right in the pawn shop for Officer O'Brien to find. The takeaway from this story is to be careful who you trust, because sometimes your pawn shop owner might be a secret crime lord. But on a more serious note, it highlights the classic elements of a comic book story. A villain with grand plans, a heroic vigilante, unexpected betrayals, and justice served in the end. This storyline follows a traditional comic book narrative structure, which not only adds to its nostalgic charm, but also keeps us hooked with its twists and turns. The next comic is titled Death Drews. It was written by Otto Binder, but the artist is unknown. Nazi forces are using enslaved people to lay railroad tracks across the deserts of Dakar to transport their supplies. But this brutal labor is causing a high death toll, which puts a major dent in their workforce. Enter a ruthless Nazi officer with a wicked solution. They masquerade as a ship crew, aiding European refugees to escape to America, but instead they transport them to Dakar to be enslaved. But never fear, because the Terror has caught wind of their evil plan. He decides to go undercover, posing as one of these desperate refugees. Once aboard the ship, bound for the so-called freedom, the Terror springs into action when the passengers start to suspect that they aren't heading towards America. With his supernatural powers, the Terror easily takes down the Nazis, locks them up, and then commandeers the ship to sail towards America. But the drama doesn't stop there. Just off the American coast, the Terror spots a lurking Nazi U-boat. In a master stroke of strategy, he hoists up a British flag instead of a French one to trick the U-boat into attacking. The Terror and the refugees escape in their lifeboats, watching from a safe distance as the U-boat takes the bait and sinks the ship with the captured Nazis still on board. An American cruise ship soon picks them up and delivers them to safety on American soil. But the Terror's mission isn't over. He jets off to Dakar to liberate the enslaved workers and serve up some well-deserved justice on their Nazi oppressors. This plot is an intense mix of suspense, drama, and high-stakes heroism. It reflects the historical context of World War II, which would have been fresh in the minds of the original readers. Furthermore, it presents the Terror as a shrewd strategist and a formidable force against the Nazi regime. The story not only provides a thrilling narrative, but also underscores the importance of resistance and the fight for freedom. The next comic is titled The Thing. The author is unknown, but it was illustrated by Sid Shores. This tale begins with an unsightly character named Dr. Fear, who's been stalking around town, literally scaring people to death, and then robbing them blind. One such unfortunate victim is discovered by Ambrose Q. Meek, a guy who lives up to his name by promptly fainting at the sight. However, when his wicked deeds don't make the front page news, Dr. Fear decides to up his ante, spreading terror on a larger scale. So what does this madman do? Well, he waltzes into a local bank and scares the customers customers to death, then loots the place. When the bank manager stumbles upon the horror scene, he calls the police, who rope in criminologist Mark Todd. And guess who shows up at the scene too? It's the faint-hearted Meek, demanding that the cops catch this monstrous villain, Dr. Fear. His outburst sends shockwaves across town, causing a wave of fear among the people. As Mark Todd is patrolling that night, he stumbles upon Meek and warns him about wandering the streets amidst the chaos. But Meek is surprisingly abrasive and tells Mark to mind his own business. However, the night has more surprises in store for Mark. He's soon attacked by Dr. Fear himself and hurled off a bridge. But Mark survives, transforming into the Blazing Skull and tracking down Dr. Fear. Here's where things get really wild if you haven't caught on yet. Fear has hijacked a local radio station and taken over Anthony J. Jack's Benevolent Hour radio show, demanding a cool $1 million ransom from the city in the next 24 hours, or else his reign of terror will continue. But then, in swoops the Blazing Skull, and a fierce battle ensues. The Skull's superior strength ultimately wins the day. When he unmasks Dr. Fear, can you guess who's hiding underneath? None other than the seemingly timid Ambrose Q. Meek, who was looking to score fame and fortune through his criminal antics. This plot introduces us to an intriguing villain whose MO isn't brute force or advanced weaponry, but terror itself. This brings an element of psychological horror into the comic that deepens the narrative. Also, the reveal of Meek as Dr. Fear showcases a classic trope of the unexpected villain, delivering a suspenseful twist to the readers. The Blazing Skull's triumphant victory underlines the themes of resilience, courage, and the fight against fear. The next comic is titled League of Crime. It was written by Stan Lee, but the artist is unknown. We meet the notorious League of Crime, comprised of the trigger-happy Nails Swigland, the brawny wrestler Crusher Collins, the suave swordsman Pierre Laverne, and the mind-manipulating psychology professor Ramu the Great. They're the city's worst nightmare. With their unique talents combined, they kick off on an unprecedented crime spree that leaves the police scrambling, and they have no choice but to call in the big guns, the Challenger. Things get even murkier when Ramu, not content with their equal share of their ill-gotten loot, uses his hypnotic prowess to force his accomplices to settle for a lesser cut and obey his commands. He first sends out Nails on a robbery mission, but what's a crime story without a showdown? Nails crosses paths with the Challenger, and they duke it out in an intense gunfight. The Challenger comes out on top, leaving Nails for the cops to scoop up. With Nails out of the picture, Ramu then dispatches Crusher on another illegal escapade, but the Challenger, always a step ahead, takes down Crusher too. In his defeat, Crusher spills the beans about their secret lair. This leads to an adrenaline-pumping clash between the Challenger and Pierre, a thrilling sword duel. And though Ramu tries to step in and save the day, the Challenger prevails, rounding up both villains for the authorities. This comic effectively combines a variety of villain archetypes to create a diverse and complex enemy team for the Challenger, amplifying the tension and excitement of the narrative. The use of Ramu's hypnotic powers to manipulate his colleagues adds another layer of intrigue, but ultimately the enduring courage and strategic brilliance of the Challenger that takes center stage, reinforcing the timeless theme of good triumphing over evil. The 220th comic in the series is from the Mystic Comics number 9. It was released in March 1942. It's titled Hitler Speaks. It was written by Stan Lee and illustrated by Chad Grothkampf. Hitler is delivering a public speech observed by Keen Marlowe and Florence Von Ward. However, the event takes an unexpected turn when the rogue radio group, Freedom Broadcast, hijacks the Fuhrer's address, openly ridiculing his tyrannical antics. Naturally, Hitler is livid and assigns his henchman, Baron to bring down Freedom Broadcast and to capture the relentless thorn in his side, the Destroyer. The story takes an exciting twist when the Destroyer visits Freedom Broadcast at their secret base. Baron and his soldiers, tracing the radio signals, launch an attack, but they've underestimated the hero. The Destroyer fends them off, escaping into the night with the broadcast team to a new secret location. With anger reaching a boiling point, announces a staggering reward of 1 million marks for capturing the Destroyer, leading the Nazis to Florence Von Ward's home. They take her hostage, hoping to lure out the Destroyer. However, even Florence's capture doesn't deter the hero, who continues to interrupt and mock Hitler in the middle of his speeches via the broadcasts. When the Nazis trace the signal back to a moving van, the Destroyer fights hard, but ultimately gets captured. Right before Hitler and Baron he's just in time to see them about to torture Florence with a heated swastika brand. The Destroyer's not finished yet. He breaks free, lands a few good hits on Hitler, and burns with the very swastika brand meant for Florence. After freeing Florence, they hightail it to Freedom Broadcast secret base. This time, they're in the skies over Germany, heckling Hitler during another speech, driving the Fuhrer to madness. The Nazis launch an aerial attack, forcing the destroyer and the others to abandon their aircraft with the broadcast equipment. They manage to go into hiding, with the destroyer swearing to continue to fight against these Nazis. This is a powerful tale of defiance and resilience, focusing on a protagonist who boldly uses humor and satire to challenge a powerful oppressor. It highlights the power of communication and the media in shaping public opinion and challenging authority. The comic brilliantly leverages the tension between the destroyer's mission and the personal stake with Florence's capture, adding emotional depth to the story. It's another vivid demonstration of the age-old struggle between good and evil. And just like that, my friends, we've reached the end of another epic comic journey. Episode 11. The drama, the action, the unexpected plot twists. These old heroes and villains sure know how to keep us hooked. Before I sign off, don't forget to leave your thoughts and theories in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear what you have to say and what you thought about today's breakdown, and what you can't wait to see in future episodes. Your input truly makes my day. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with your fellow comic-verse explorers. Let's keep the love for our favorite stories alive and growing. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated with this comic odyssey. Until next time, stay curious, keep reading, and remember, every page turn is a new adventure waiting to unfold. Catch you in the next one.